This game is a demonstration on how to make your opponent's bishop a bad bishop. And that's exactly what happens, but let's check it out. It's round 6 of my over-the-board tournament in Vegas. Let's go. I mean, round 6, which means it's day 4 in the morning, and it's been a long day. It's been a long week. We play, the card con, knight takes e4, and I play knight f6. And really, like, what I've seen here is either knight takes f6, and then go into the target tower variation. I get my bishop out, I castle. There's also a line where you just play knight g3, and then, you can play a million different things as black. And also, online, sometimes people play queen e2. It hangs a pawn, but they're trying to play for nonsense like this, where you get the nice little checkmate in 5 moves. I've fallen for that one time early on in my playing chess days. But now, at this point, I see something completely new I've never seen before. Knight to c3. What? What is this? I was like, it's not bad. It's just, like, not good. Like, I've already equalized as black on move 5. It says 0.0, right? So at this point, I was like, okay, well, why don't I just develop my knight? They develop their knight. I get my knight out to b6. My bishop can roam freely. After bishop to e2, I develop my bishop. And, in the card con, it's still a card con. So I say, whatever. I'll trade the bishop for the knight and play e6. My pawns are on light squares, counteracting your light square bishop. They castle. I get my bishop out, and I play queen to c7. And they play knight to e4. Now, after knight to e4, I was already having some loose ideas to try like a fishing pole trap where you play like h5, you jump the knight into g4, and if they take, the rook is open and the queen teams up with the rook to deliver checkmate on h2. Okay, I was just keeping tabs on that. I was not like for sure going to go for it, but at this point I thought, well, if I did want to go for that, I could still trade. And after you take, I just bring a new knight. You're right. I'd bring a new knight over here. This bishop is staring at this pawn. And at the very least, after bishop to f4, I actually still can go for this. Like, if this queen ever moves, then I thought that knight g4 would work. Because if you take and take, if you take, then this is just mate, right? But supposedly, white actually has a better resource, which is bishop takes c6, which I don't get. I mean, it's a check, and if I take with the queen, then I don't have mate threat anymore. So this, and then apparently they just played g3, blocking it all off, and black is still better, but I was like, it's a classical game. My opponent's going to be resourceful. Like, they have 90 minutes on the clock. Let's not be crazy, and it's also a little bit of hope chess. So for that reason, I said no. Like, online blitz, sure, I probably go for it. Over the board, 90 minutes on the clock, no way. And here they play queen to e2, and I go knight to d5. Why do I go knight to d5? Because, like I said in the title and thumbnail of this video, we want to make their bishop bad. Which bishop? Well, first off, this light square bishop wasn't that great in the first place, but I do allow them to trade it off. And it's really this dark square bishop, which is going to be a terrible bishop. And my whole goal is to blockade this d pawn. If they ever push c4, I don't care, because I'm just going to do everything possible to blockade this d pawn in the future. And they prepare it. I get castled, and then when they push, they want to take and have a discovered attack. So I get out of the way with queen to b8. And after they centralize another rook, I play rook to g5. Oh, sorry, I have to play bishop to g5, hitting the rook. And yeah, I mean, this is fine. Like, the rook actually goes to c3, and I realize, is the rook coming over here, or are they doubling up and then going to keep opening up and taking control of the c file? I wasn't exactly sure, so at this point, I was like, okay, let's just play rook to d7. What was my point of rook d7? I think rook d7 was so that I could double up on the d file, or keep one rook on the d file to blockade the pawn, and one rook to the c file to fight for the open c file. I think that was my thought process. And after queen to g4, I figured, okay, well, let's just get heavy pieces off the board, because if if this is going to be a long-term weakness, or if this is going to be a bad bishop, like, let's just get to an endgame. I'll have better piece activity. That's exactly what we do. We go here, g3, and bishop b8. And here my opponent made a weird decision. I mean, it's the best engine move, but they made a weird decision to play c5. And I was like, c5? This thing is a backwards pawn, and it's also blockading the bishop, and you have a rook in front of your bishop. So, like, this is just, like, not... This is minimizing white's piece activity. Like, I did not understand it. And at this moment, I thought, okay, they pushed c5. What if I push e5? And my calculation was that after takes and takes, I'm hitting the rook. Of course, we can trade off the bishops. Look, I get rid of white's weakness of like a bad bishop and the backwards d-pawn, but I gain an asset. I gain a passed d-pawn. And yes, it's still equal, but my whole point is that I'm the one playing with chances because you don't have a passed pawn. I have a passed pawn. And it's just rooks and kings and pawns on the board, and it should be, I thought I was going to be the one putting pressure on white here. But my opponent did not go into this. Instead, they chose to play rook to d3, basically opening this bishop to try and take on e5. But the problem with that is that I can just push e4. And, like, this... this bishop has really got no hope. I mean, it is... Where's it really gonna go, right? I mean, this is also even controlled here. Like, it's not ideal. And like anytime that it shows up to g5, I can just push f6. Like this bishop is not going anywhere. But they play rook to e3. I push f5, and here we go. They push f4. What is this? Like, they think that I'm did they know that I was a content creator, and they thought, oh, he's a content creator, he's gonna think that en passant is forced, and then this will be just a terrible position for black, just all these split pawns or whatever. But no, of course, here I said, all right, let me play h6, which the engine actually prefers g5. But if you find g5, this is a little crazy. I mean, g5, rook g7, and if white tries to hold on to everything, you just undermine it, because who cares if they have pawns on the h file? They're not going to go anywhere. You just simply you can either take, you can play rook to g4, but you can do anything. Like, you could just take because the bishop's defending here. If you go like this and this, like, you're just totally fine. King moves out of the way, you bring the rook to the g file. And again, like, your pieces are just so much more active than white's. Like, this bishop will never come alive. And yeah, so this is why g5 was a better move. But I mean, not to make excuses, but I was feeling a little bit of the tournament fatigue. I was just thinking, well, why not just h6? Because h6, if they try and stop me with h4, then I still play g5 anyway. Or I play g6, put a rook here, and then play g5, and I still crash through. So I was just looking at, okay, like, there's all sorts of different options. Or wait, g5 takes, and rook g7. Yeah, no, there's just so many different options. Like, I was happy with this. But my opponent didn't even play h4. They played rook f1. I was like, okay, you don't want to stop my plan? I'm full gas ahead. Like, we're totally fine. G5 takes, and all of a sudden f4 is coming, and that's exactly what I play. I'm like, I'm not concerned about this, because when you give me this check, I just play rook g7, and that's why I was like, wow, I'm so glad I played rook d7, very flexible move. And now that they played c5, I don't need it on the d file, so I was totally fine with rook g7. After takes and takes, now they have to save their rook. The rook moves back, and at this moment I made maybe a little bit of an inaccuracy. But I did not know that there's a little bit of a trick here. I mean, bishop's been in jail, right? Bishop is so inactive, and in terms of chess strategy, it's an endgame. You want active pieces. Rook h8. What does this change? After my opponent's next move, I had a miniature panic attack for like 2 minutes. And I was sweating it out. My palms were literally so sweaty. And that's like the one thing from this tournament. Like, my palms got so sweaty. I like, they get sweatier playing chess over the board than they do with me playing tennis for 2 hours or pickleball for 2 hours. Like, it's insane. But basically, this bishop tried to come alive. If you notice, after rook h8, I was trying to take on h3, right? After rook h8, the bishop, my king, and the rook are all on the same diagonal, but it's blocked in. How do you open it up? Rook takes e4. And I was like, whoa, does this work? Like, do I need to be accurate? Like, what is happening here? Because the threat is after takes d5 check, I'm losing the rook, and then also they have a passed d pawn. So I was getting a little scared, but after just 2 minutes of okay, breathe. All right, take, check, here, take. What does it look like? It looks like that I have 2 really strong passed pawns. My king is going to stop your h pawn, and my bishop is going to be the MVP. So the bad bishop is off the board, and meanwhile we still have our MVP all-star bishop. And even after d6, it looks like you're limiting the activity of my bishop, but it's fine. I just keep moving my king forward. Like I said, like my king's going to be taking your h-pawn, right? And 1 king versus 2 connected passed pawns will never, ever win if it's just those pieces on the board. Or they will never draw, because basically if we ever get e3 on the board and the king's on f3, if the king takes on f4, this pawn just runs. You're never going to be able to catch it. So after a4, I started seeing a few ghosts here. A ghost is, a issue that isn't really an issue. You think it's a problem, but, chess engines are like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. And you should just, like, get better at chess. But my whole thing was that, okay, I when the pawn goes to d7, like, for example, when the pawn goes to d7, I have to play bishop c7 to stop the promotion of that pawn. But what could stop me from playing bishop c7 if they have a pawn on b6? And I thought, okay, well, technically, if I just did absolutely nothing and they played b6, takes, and takes, then I couldn't play bishop c7. But what I forgot was that if they take with the c pawn, then this pawn hangs. But either way, I was like in endgame mode, just eliminate all counterplay. And I calculated this, and I was like, this just b6 destroys any hope for my opponent. For that reason, they're running out of moves. They played d7, I played bishop c7, and they try and push. But yeah, now they try and save their pawn. They can't, so they move this way. I play e3, getting ready to get that structure where after king to f3, if they ever take this pawn, which is defended by my bishop anyway, then this pawn just runs. So for that reason, I just took on h3, and my opponent resigns. He realizes this king is going to get over here, and we're going to promote. Even just something simple as like b5, and check this out, e3, you take, g2, and the red carpet is there for the pawn to promote. MVP bishop versus the terrible bishop that was on the board earlier. I mean, just complete disparity of the 2 different pieces, and that is why piece activity is so important in games. And yeah, I was super happy to get a relatively stress-free win in round 6. This puts me at 4 points out of 6 rounds. And if you missed a recap, then go check them out over there. But this was a fun one, and I really enjoyed getting to convert this endgame. Happy learning, everyone.